Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Kevin from the proposition side. On the motion saying this House believes that the values of Western civilization can't meet the challenges of the modern age. We have Western civilization as the heritage of social norms, traditional customs, belief systems, political systems, artifacts, and technology of the Western world. That's from the Wikipedia.com. We have also the modern age, which is the post-medieval era, all a widespan of a time marked in part by technological innovations, urbanization, scientific discoveries, and globalization. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as we progress into the globalized world, all the people need to focus on doing the right thing, and if not making the world a better place, to at least not make it worse. We need to take all the positive attributes everyone has and discard the negative ones and learn from each other. And now this is why in the debate of today, we're just going to assess this debate in order to show that these values can't meet all the challenges of the modern age. We're just assessing, we're not bringing something very tangible or it's not something like a plan to the table, but just assessing and seeing whether the Western civilization can meet these challenges or cannot. And really and proudly proposing this, that the Western civilization can meet the challenges of the modern age. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'll list for you some of the challenges of the modern age. A few of them. The following are a few of them. Denied, please. Low carbon energy, climate change, deforestation, overfishing, education, gender equality, economic growth, racism, air pollution, global health, natural hazards, water pollution. Mind you, ladies and gentlemen, these are to mention a few. These are to mention a few, meaning there are many other challenges that must be met. And just to mention a few, I've just mentioned these. In the spread of Western civilization, we can't forget this and we can't ignore this, that there comes with Westernization and superiority of the cultures of the Western culture over the other cultures. And now, ladies and gentlemen, you have the Western values and the Western cultures, which include the following. First of all, we can't deny that the Western civilization has done good. Yeah, it has met some of the challenges, but here we're just assessing to show that, yeah, it has met some of the challenges, even though those challenges might have caused other problems. We're not assessing that. I mean, we're not going to talk about those problems and whatever, but we're just saying, yeah, it has solved some, but it has left others hanging. So meaning, this world can't be a monoculture, can't be, the whole world can't adopt this or inherit this Western civilization. The following are the Western values, where include materialism, which is a show of wealth through the accumulation of showy possessions. That's a Western value. We have living beyond your means. Those are the high debt loans that we are seeing in many countries. We have government and social safety net for people who make poor decisions, whereby people make poor decisions and the government is blamed for that. That's a Western civilization that is being brought in other countries. You have the importance of allowing cell phones in classes which distract the students, and in the challenges of seeing education. I don't want to come to debate about the negative effects of the telephones, but we can see that telephones can distract the students, ladies and gentlemen. Have the lack of discipline in schools, whereby the teachers are blamed for students shortcoming, ladies and gentlemen.
Let me engage
the
just
overuse of resources. That's the overuse of the resources in many different countries. And this is also a source of the Western civilization. We have the rights that criminals retain in spite of their crimes. Some crimes are given them the overrights, not just the same right that are given to the criminals, but overrights, like a criminal is not taken as a criminal, but given some other rights, like a normal person, in spite of their claims. And also there is the separation of churches. Ladies and gentlemen, we've seen the separation of churches. The Ukraine stuff and the whatever, the Islamic, they're just separating the churches. That's a source of Western civilization. And these Western values are not solving the problem of the challenges that we're seeing in the modern age. Just the few mentioned there above. Have the rationalism, which brings the racism that was mentioned, the challenges of the modern age. Have industrialization, whereby the industrialization, the making of the plastics. You have the water pollution, whereby the plastics are put into the water. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's reason together. The Western civilization, yeah, we accept this as the proposition. We are just assessing to see, yeah, it has made some of the challenges, but it can't meet all the challenges of the modern age. Unless the opposition prove to us how this Western civilization, or how the adoption or the inheritance of the Western civilization will solve these challenges of the modern age, they won't take this debate. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to raise my case. Yes, POI allowed, please, if any.
Do phones belonging to the Western civilization or in the modern age? Contextualize.
Sorry?
Do phones belonging to the Western civilization or it is modern age? Contextualize.
The Western civilization is also current, please.
Are you sure?
In the modern age, yes.
This is Deborah, first speaker from the opposition side. Opposing a motion states that this House believes that the values of the Western civilization can meet the challenges of the modern age. Now, before going any more further, I would like to tell side proposition that this is an analytical motion. Their job is to come and justify how the values of the Western civilization cannot meet the challenges of the modern age. And unless they do that, they won't take the debate. And as the opposition, we're here to justify how the values of the Western civilization actually meet the challenges of the modern age. As the first speaker stated, he said, he came to our side by saying that they're here to show us how it cannot meet the challenges of the modern age, which is for the side opposition. Now, before going any more further, I'd like to tell you, I would like to let him know that the values of the Western civilization can meet the challenges of the modern age if they are fully exercised on their full effect, which is what the side opposition is coming to argue to the table today. Now, they talked about overuse of resources. I'm going to talk about democracy. Democracy, which is a value of the modern age, and it is practiced in the modern age. Now, democracy, it has the government, and the government has a constitution that is there for the environment. Now, what does it do? It curbs people that overutilizes resources. Now, I'm showing you how it is being used to solve a problem of the modern age.
Point of information.
Not allowed, please. Before going any more further in this, I would like to define, I allow with your kitchens, but I would like to define meat. Meat for side opposition it cannot be responsible, meaning that side opposition today takes the debate if it shows how the values of Western civilization stand in the best position to be used as an approach to address the changes of the modern age if they are fully exercised. Now, first I'll talk about the problem that they raised of overrights. I'll talk about democracy, 3 pillars of democracy, which is equality, fraternity, and liberty. This is a value of the Western civilization. How does it solve in the modern age? In equality, we have laws for someone that does not respect equality. It means that if you do not accept equality, I'll pass some laws, which means it is a metric that is used by the values of the Western civilization in the modern age. Another thing was the separation of churches. I said if they are fully exercised to the full effect, they're gonna work, which is the side proposition. The problem with Christianity, it has now become a spirit of religion rather in believing in whatever you believe. If like I'm a Christian and he's a Muslim, I have a right to be a Muslim, and he has a right to be a Christian. Now, another thing was rationalism, ladies and gentlemen. Let me show you how the value of Western civilization, rationalism, is actually being a metric to solve problems of the modern age. Self-reliance, ladies and gentlemen. President Paul Kagame, the country Rwanda is a country that is being rational, and it is being used as self-reliance. For example, we were solving there is a speech that His Excellency said, and he was like, "Why do I need Europeans to come and supervise in order for me to get justice?" This is an example that shows that rationalism has taught us to be self-reliant, to solve our problems by ourselves, not by the help of European countries and etc. Now, allow me to show you how the values of the Western civilization has actually helped us to solve the problem of the modern age. Number 1, Christianity. This contains pillars of love, peace, forgiveness, which solve the following challenges of the modern age. Number 1, post-war periods, which solves the problem of revenge. And I'll give you a case study of Rwanda after the genocide, where the government used pastors, used leaders in churches to teach people that we are unified, we are one as Rwandans, and to forgive and to love one another. Now, another thing it has solved poverty. In Christianity, we learned that we have to share the less that we have. If I have something and for you are hungry, I have to give you what I have. Christianity, which is solving a problem that is in the modern age. Another thing was crime rates. In the modern age, currently here, we have people that rape, people that do thefty, but in Christianity, we analyze these as sins, as the 10 commandments that we shouldn't have to do, which proves that these values has come to make peace. And I'll go on injustice, as they've been saying, there is over rights because of the values of the not allowed, because of the values of the Western civilization. Now let me tell you, if I am a criminal, yes, I'm a criminal, but I'm a human being. I have human rights. Though I'm in a prison, I have human rights and have to be what? And they have to be respected.
So thank you very much. I'm called Kezia Farbeza from the proposition side. And the motion of today is, today House believes that the values of Western civilization cannot meet the challenges of the modern age. And before I go far, the first speaker from the opposition side, you've said that values, like the values we have, like Christianity, have come to, like, they'll put in place just to make peace. But I'd like to ask you, let us look at the status quo. Aren't we
please.
denied? Christianity is there. But why do we have wars? Why do we have religion? Like, you find the Christians are fighting against Muslims. Then this totally shows that even though, yes, Christianity was there, yes, we got peace, we learned all that, but it has negative effects. And it is what the proposition side has come to prove today. So we have wars. And secondly, dear judges and the House at large, the first speaker from the opposition side has talked about the speech that His Excellency Paul Kagame gave. And if His Excellency Paul Kagame gave a speech saying that we should be self-reliant and not depending on foreign aid, this means that, yes, we learned, like, yes, they brought things which were important, but he's telling us to limit because there is a bad effect of relying on them. This totally shows that not all values brought by Europeans have a positive impact, and it is what the proposition says is proving. And secondly, you talked about pastors. My God, I'd like to give an example of the 1994 genocide. The pastors, the fathers of that time, they were the first people who could spread the genocide ideology. Weren't they Christians? Didn't they learn about peace? Didn't they learn about the 10 Commandments? But what did they do? The values had a bad impact, and it is what the proposition side is proving today. Unless we acknowledge the negative effects of values of Western civilization, we'll never be able to meet the solution for the challenges. And it is what the proposition side is proving.
Your idea, Speaker.
Denied. Another value of the Western. Remember, we are not talking about Western civilization in general. We are talking about the values. One of the values, you asked a question about phones, and from our research from Quora.com, we found that one of their values is allowing phones in school, and we are showing a negative impact of doing this. So it means that their value has a negative impact. Another value, it is, they emphasize about the importance of social media. We don't deny it, we get news. The research I have, it is from social media. But the negative impact of using social media, like there is hate distribution. You know, people are spreading bad words on social media. Kids are watching pornography. Why is this? It is because we are over-relying on the European Western civilization. Denied. And lastly, I'd like to talk about capitalism. You know, this is also their value, whereby by looking at this, the private people are only favored. It means that only the rich are favored. And by this, there is income inequality. There is time. Yeah, there is income inequality. And if you have income inequality, it is a challenge we are facing. Remember the motion they're saying cannot meet the challenges of the modern age. And I have listed all these challenges of the modern age. And by conclusion, as we progress the globalized world, all people need to focus on doing the right thing, and if not making the world a better place, to at least not make it worse. We are not denying that it has brought good, but let us try to take the positive attributes, and by this everyone has to discard the negative ones. Thank you very much. I rest my case.
Panel. The negative side is propitious, filled with propinquity for the negative side that just gave us the debate on a silver plate. Number one, we would like to submit and note emotional scoring in this debate because they are contradicting the modern age and the Western civilizational principles. They are the ones who characterize this honorable house that modern age, it is characterized by technological advancement and urbanization. Then, do phones belong in the technological advancement? Were phones there when there wasn't technology? Panel chair house. It is not vivid to ascend that claim. So my submission will include notes taken from Professor Kurt Lewin's book called Addressing the Modern Diversity Chair. They are bringing problems like superiority, whatever. That's just a simple assertion and justified. It is not even an argument. You are not making a thing that is pouring water on the table, just making accusations without even vivid evidence. Just granting that it has solved some challenges, it is just giving us the debate, because the debate itself does not say that only. You are highlighting problems like pornography, what and what, then like genocide, but the question is that, did the genocide happen when those fathers were fully observing those principles of Western civilization to their full effect? Were they following the values of Western civilization? In Christianity, you have that you must kill. No, they didn't observe the values of Western civilization to their full effect. So you can't credit it to the Christianity. Christianity itself, it is a written code, the taken not. So on that analogy, they don't have anything that is pouring water on table, but just making accusations, saying that rationality, it causes racial discrimination. You have no vivid evidence. Rationality itself, it is the idea of capitalism, the idea of the entire depending in yourself, like the idea of waiting for no external. My good friend Deborah was throwing good analogies on table panel chair house. So I have 3 tangible affidavits that I'm ascending in my submission. 1, the idea of restorative justice. Number 2, the narrative of self-reliance from rationality they are claiming. Number 3, panel, the analogy of democracy. I ascend. So the idea of restorative justice itself, it is the process of reuniting the offended and the offendant. That actually happens in periods of wars or like periods after crime, like the post-crime periods. I will give you a simple example of the 1919 genocide, 1994 genocide against the Tutsis that they are actually highlighting. Restorative justice itself, it helped us use, actually, these values like Christianity, they helped us reunite the people through the word of God, the panel chair house. My argument still stands. Are you opposing that Christianity itself was not used in the restorative justice programs? Engage. Anganzi panel. So on that analogy, I hereby assume that Christianity itself, it creates an atmosphere of brotherhood where people live together in harmony, in respect to those principles in their full effect. Remember, if they are not respected to their full effect, then the thing is flabbergasted itself. Fully effect respect panel chair house. On that note, I hereby ascend my argumentation number 2. Vivid affidavit, the idea and narrative of self-reliance panel chair house. So in this case, we are going to examine and interrogate the idea of self-reliance, or like these capitalistic ideas they are claiming. Capitalism, like the idea of self-reliance itself, it helps us to entirely rely on ourselves, not wait for any help, like being rational, we as a country on our own resources, panel Charles. So on that analogy, it fosters development in the country where people are working together in harmony. Still, it linked to that idea, to that affidavit number 1 of the ideal of Christianity. A simple question. How would this solve the challenges of the modern age? Like, how would your narratives solve the challenges of the modern age without these values of Western civilization? I give you values like democracy, values like rationality, like Christianity, like philosophy. Now, panel, imagine a world with those values. Imagine a world with those ideas, panel, without those affidavits, panel. They are not pouring water on table. More on the idea of the democracy. More on the idea of democracy will be ascended by my third speaker, where I was throwing good analogies on table. I am proud to oppose.
Judges, my name is Adorn. I'm from the proposition side for the motion that states that this House believes that the values of the Western civilization cannot meet the challenges of the modern age. Well, I'll start clearly by the second speaker. Dear judges, they are becoming with points about democracy and showing us that our point capitalism is not effective. Well, I would like to inform you that the countries that do not belong in this Western civilization, these values of the Western civilization that involve the Western countries and their values, those countries that do not belong in that system, these countries functioned really well. Denied. These countries functioned really well before the occurrence of democracy. These countries functioned really well before the occurrence of the capitalism. Let's take an example about capitalism. Let's take an example of the kingdom of Rwanda by the
ancient times. They used about different programs, their own programs that do not involve the Western values and cultures, and this made a harmonious community. Then why do they think that these values are solving the problems? Yet the problems were brought by these same values. That is as my first speaker showed you. Now, I would like to also talk about how they did not quite understand the meaning of superiority as our point. We are saying that these Western values, the fact that we are considering them in this motion shows that these values are strong, which means there is superiority, which means the Western values are highly classified, and the Western countries where they originate, which causes superiority of those countries, which causes them influencing the underdevelopment of the rest of the world. And then they also talked about, they mentioned that the reason why we are facing all these problems is because these values were not fully, and they were not fully used by the rest of the world. Now, I would like to tell you that, and they did not show us how. Did these values come not to be effective? Did these values come so that they cannot be fully implemented and efficient? So if they have met that challenge of not being fully implemented, which means they're not efficient. If they were efficient, they would have been fully implemented, which means their point is not valid. They also talked about, oh my God, they asked us a question that says, we're talking about phones in schools as values of the Western civilization. And then he asked us, is it part of the advancement in technology? Well, it is. Advancement in technology does not end. It doesn't end. We're still advancing. We're making robots. We're doing a lot of things, which means this motion is in the present. Cannot solve. It's the present. These phones, they're not solving anything. Of all the problems that my first speaker told you, the global warming, the corruption, everything, the phones, what are they solving? And then they also talked about Christianity. They talked about how this Christianity prevents us from being rapists and thieves. Well, I would like to say that we were not rapists and thieves even before Christianity came into this world. We were not. So why... These values of capitalism, for one person striving to be better than the other, this is what brought stealing. This is what brought rapists. This is what brought all these problems. Yet it's a circle of them solving the problems that they caused on our expense. And then they also talked about injustice, how that even prisoners deserve rights. Yes, but remember, in the ancient history, let's take an example of Africa. Even those people who were misfits in the society were still granted rights. They just had to have a punishment, but they also granted rights. So this Western civilization did not bring anything. It's just solving the problems that itself caused, which makes it very not good.
Right, dear speaker.
And they also talked about self-reliance. Rwanda comes from Kwanda. We have a principle called Kwigira, which is self-reliant in our culture. We have not been taught that by the Western civilization. And the separation of churches, it brought Christianity. We were having our traditional churches with that is separation. If they did bring that, then we wouldn't have separation of churches. Thank you very much.
I go by the names of Dairo Clever, and I believe you need this. I go by the names of Dairo Clever, and I will ascend my case. I'm the third speaker from the opposition side, and I believe that they're wrong. And the reason why they're wrong is because the first thing that they mentioned was wrong. Their source of information, my dear ladies and gentlemen. Wikipedia, anyone can easily write anything they want. So their basis is just based on someone's thinking. My dear ladies and gentlemen, anything that has .com on it is something that cannot be trusted to be used as a source of information in any kind of a debate, my dear ladies and gentlemen, to show that their source is not a real source, my dear ladies and gentlemen. So that I believe that the pillars and the values that they gave were not the real values, my dear ladies and gentlemen. That is the reason why we are not actually agreeing with them and giving you our own values, my dear ladies and gentlemen. The real values are rather democracy, rationality, Christianity, my dear ladies and gentlemen. What they gave was rather the products of Western civilization, my dear ladies and gentlemen. The rest all they gave were rather products of the Western civilization. So that is exactly what we are against, my dear ladies and gentlemen. So what my opponents talked, my precurrent speakers talked about democracy. My dear ladies and gentlemen, democracy meets human rights and violation if fully exercised, my dear ladies and gentlemen, if fully exercised, that is what we are, or that is that's what the motion of today states, my dear ladies and gentlemen. And which brings me to the question that we asked them: how would you solve the challenges of the modern age without the values of Western civilization? Which was not answered, my dear ladies and gentlemen, to show that rather our solutions are the ones that they're basing on, my dear ladies and gentlemen. Telling us about Kwanda and everything, my dear ladies and gentlemen. Rwanda is not the only country that is using these pillars, my dear ladies and gentlemen. There are very many countries that are using these pillars, my dear ladies and gentlemen. Which the fact is self-reliance in Western civilization or not? It is among. So that is the reason why we are advocating for it, my dear ladies and gentlemen. The rest have been talked about. That is rationality and Christianity and restorative justice. These are things that have solved things such as avoiding wars, my dear ladies and gentlemen, which are modern challenges. Poverty through Christianity, where they tell people to give more to give to their neighbors, my dear ladies and gentlemen. And human rights violation, my dear ladies and gentlemen, that has been solved by Christianity and democracy itself, my dear ladies and gentlemen. So as I move on, the reason why we still have wars is because these pillars are not what they say. They asked us a question why we still have wars. These pillars are not fully exercised to their full capacity. But my dear ladies and gentlemen, the motion is: can they or can't they? That is the reason why we're giving vivid examples of countries such as Rwanda, my dear ladies and gentlemen. They talked about fathers in genocide, my dear ladies and gentlemen. The fathers in genocide, the first question is: are they Christianity itself, my dear ladies and gentlemen? Are they the reason why they give? Are they the ones who set out values that are supposed to be followed by Christianity, my dear ladies and gentlemen? You can be a Christian but defy the values of Christianity, my dear ladies and gentlemen. So meaning that it was not actually fully exercised to its full capacity, my dear ladies and gentlemen, but it's exercising to its full capacity. Let us solve these problems, my dear ladies and gentlemen. So they talked about income inequality, my dear ladies and gentlemen. I talked about Christianity, where they tell people to give more to their neighbors, my dear ladies and gentlemen. If fully exercised, then they can solve these problems, my dear ladies and gentlemen. The society of they talked about harmonious society of Rwanda, my dear ladies and gentlemen. A society of killing twins, a society of killing girls, a society of full of killings and rituals, my dear ladies and gentlemen. I don't believe that was a harmonious society, my dear ladies and gentlemen, because I believe it was full of bloodshed, which I believe our side is more of an effective side. Thank you very much.
ni nyinshi kuko izo bavuze rwose nazo nabashaka kwandika. The shade it. Drop side.
Yeah, but my question is, it feels like
The Bora back for the reply speech. Now, allow me to take you through the debate, what their claim was and what our claim was. Now, they claim that, the motion was asking the Western civilization can they can't meet the challenges of the modern age. And side opposition were arguing it can if it is fully exercised. If a person is killing, if a pastor is killing Christianity, him being a pastor doesn't mean he is Christianity, doesn't mean he is religion. If a pastor is killing, the rules are still there in the Bible. Do not kill your friend. So it does not, the pastor killing does not mean Christianity brought rules. Now, side opposition were saying they can work, but the problem is they're not fully exercised. They're exercised in a bad way. Where we said the capitalist cause racist. No, the capitalism was there for self-reliance, not for racist. But people decide to use it in the wrong way. Now, side proposition claimed that that Christianity caused wars. I already told you, a pastor killing someone, it is not Christianity, or that doesn't make it religion. They talked about capitalism. We kept on saying it was there for self-reliance, not for people to actually refuse to give their friends resources or anything. And another thing, we burden them by showing us how, in the absence of Western civilization, they would actually solve the problems of the modern age. What does this mean? Let's take an example of Rwanda. If there wasn't Christianity in Rwanda, how would they have solved the problem of ideology? How would they have reunited the Rwandans without telling them Christianity, without telling them that I have to love my neighbor? We are Rwandans regardless of the rest of the whatever. What is a country without democracy? What is a country without Christianity? What is a country without human rights? They kept on claiming that there are countries that operated well without these pillars of the Western civilization. We asked, which country have you had that it's developed without human rights, without respecting human rights, without Christianity, without democracy? There is no country, which proves which gives side opposition the debate, because we gave a burden to them, and they did not show us how they can actually work without the modern civilization. We cannot solve the problem of inequalities without human rights. We cannot solve the problem of ideologies without Christianity. And their case, they were still arguing that they cannot work. But the way the clash was in the point where we said they have negative effects, yes, but if they're not fully exercised. Time.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I will reply speech as the proposition side. We're coming to show you how we must take this debate. First of all, the opposition side came telling us how our values were not correct. First of all, they said that our source was not correct. Mind you that the first speaker came saying that that our definitions were correct, and in that case, she only defined meat, meaning that they allowed the Western civilization and the modern age that we defined. And there was a contradiction where the third speaker came saying that our sources were not able to be, they were not like that reliable, while they accepted it from the first speech. That's which is not tangible. They came also saying that our values were not correct, but mind you that they only brought pillars, while the motion is about that the values of Western civilization can meet the challenges of the modern age. They only brought the pillars, 3 pillars, which are the Christianity, democracy, and self-reliance, whereby we refuted their pillars by saying that I couldn't leave the pillars out, but even though it was the values, but they brought the pillars, and that's why we say that in their Christianity we refuted that, saying that this brought the separation. In my first speech, I said, yeah, we accept that the Western civilization has brought some goods, and we can't deny that, but it can meet the challenges that I've listed in the modern ages here, as the low carbon energies, the climate changes, deforestation, overfishing, and other whatever. We refuted that, saying that the Christianity, yeah, it has brought that love that is saying. But my speaker came telling them that the love was there even before the Christianity was there, and refuted that, saying that it brought the separation, since we gave an example, the 1994 genocide, which was there. And also they came saying the democracy, they refuted our point of the overuse of resources as a value of the Western civilization, and they refuted that by using the democracy. But to show them how that democracy has called the capitalism, and that brought down their 2 pillars, and the third pillar that they brought is the self-reliance, where I showed them that self-reliance was a cultural value, where my third speaker came telling us about Kwigira, which is a word that was there before even this Western civilization was there. So meaning the self-reliance wasn't brought about the Western civilization, but rather also it was there in Rwanda. They came saying that the Western civilization can meet all the challenges when they were fully efficient. And ladies and gentlemen, my third speaker came telling them, he asked them that, why did you bring up the Western civilization when you know that it will not be fully effective? What was the aim of the bringing up the Western civilization when it won't be effective? But they left that hanging. And ladies and gentlemen, also, they also came saying that Rwanda is not the only one with this, the Western civilization. They came telling us that we only brought Rwanda as a country, not as an example. But to say Rwanda is an example, because they also say that Africa, my third speaker came telling us about Africa in general. And they came saying that this is the question they were asking, that it was very even unlogical. They say that how would we solve the challenges without the values of the Western civilization? Firstly, ignoring that my third speaker and also the second speaker came telling them how all these challenges were brought about the Western civilization. Because I've shown you how the rationalism had brought the racism as the challenge of the modern world. The industrialization has brought the water pollution, which we have in the modern ages. And this question was unlogical, so it couldn't count on that, since it couldn't solve the challenge of the modern ages, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. I rest my case, and I think the debate is ours, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
So, basing on that, drum roll, please. The opposition will take the debate.